This video is presented by the EA Creator Network. Hello, today I am building in Henford on Bagley and I am making a medieval tavern that uses cottage living, jungle adventure, the garden to table kit, and it's not used in this video yet, but I'm going to be using it on the inside. I'm going to also be using the Crystal Creation stuff pack. I enjoyed last week's build where I used one expansion pack, one game pack, one stuff pack, and one kit. And so when I was deciding to do a medieval build, I wanted to try and do the same thing. And I was going between cottage living and get together, but I decided on cottage living because I wanted to build in Henford, and I figured that I can probably get away with just using cottage living. I don't really need get together, and I really wanted to use the chimney that not the chimney, the fireplace that comes with cottage living. That was another selling point for picking that one. And also I was going to have more like farm animals around. I ended up just doing a chicken coop because I couldn't actually fit a larger barn on this lot. This is a pretty small lot. I also, like, for a moment thought about horse ranch because I thought it would be cute to have stables. And that is kind of what the building on the left is, but I'm not going to actually have any of the horse stuff because I didn't pick that expansion pack. But if you download this and you want to just add in some of the horse stuff, I think I'm going to leave at least like a couple of spots where that could be a thing that would fit in over there. And before I continue to talk too much and I forget, I did have a reference picture which inspired the stables to the left. So I'm going to pull that up real quick. It is the structure at the bottom of this drawing. I really liked the look of that. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to use that as inspiration for one part of my build. And then the rest, I'm kind of just going to do my own thing. And just like my build last week, this is going to be split into two parts. So this is just the exterior, and then next week I will have the floor plan and the interior of both the stables and the tavern area. I haven't even started the inside of this build yet, so I have no idea what it's going to end up looking like, but I'm imagining stone floors, maybe like a mixture of stone walls and some wooden walls, but I don't really know what my options are for wooden walls and what I would like to use on the inside. I have no idea yet, but the reason I was like almost going to use get together was because I wanted to use the half timber walls, and sometimes I use just the base game wallpaper used at the roof peak as like fake half timber walls, but I was like, I can just use columns. And so I found a base game wall that looked pretty nice. And so I just put a bunch of these dark wooden cottage living columns over the entire like second floor of this build. And then I put in some like wall shelves towards like the lower part of it just to add a bit more detail to it. You might even be able to do it with just a base game column as well. I don't remember if I ever tried that because I was like, I always used the wallpaper that I'm using at the roof peak to create that look. I don't know if I've tried to do base game columns or not, so I'm gonna have to like try that out one day whenever I do another base game build and see if I like the look of that. But you can see I was going through and trying to see what I could put on there. I was looking at some of the jungle adventure stuff, but I was like, no, I can't really put stone at the base of this. I think it looks a little bit funny. And then after I realized, oh, I could just grab a wall shelf and it'll look a little bit strange up close, and at some of the corners there is a gap there. But I was like, I feel like no one's looking that closely at it, and I think it looks a bit better with the shelves when you're like looking from a distance. The walls and most of the stuff I used on the outside of the structures were pretty much all cottage living and base game. I think I use some Jungle Adventure windows mostly by the stable area, like the ones that don't have the glass and is open. It was really fitting for that. And I think I had picked Jungle Adventure mostly for some of the wooden furniture that I knew was in it. And now I'm realizing that there's a lot of like those stone cracks as well. So I could probably use some of those on the inside. And if I decide to add it to the outside, maybe on some of like these wall fences at the back, maybe I could put some of those wall cracks there. These were the base game shelves that I had mentioned before, and I was going to try and size them up and see how they look like that. But I feel like it looked decent, just a single one. Maybe if I had ToolMod installed, I would have sized it up just a little bit more and had seen if I liked that a bit better, but I don't have ToolMod right now. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to except this one. I think it looks good, especially from like a higher angle up. If you're like kind of tilting it down, it does look kind of just like a shelf. But when am I ever looking at a build from like a different angle than this? And I realized that I do use Jungle Adventure for the archways in the stable area, and I think I also use it for the main entrance door of the tavern. I know I used the base game one at the back, but I'm pretty sure that I used the Jungle Adventure one as like the main entrance. And see, here I was trying to fit in the larger barn. I was like, maybe I can make it blend in with the other parts of the stable. And I felt like I was just doing too much and it looked a bit too weird. And then I couldn't really have the half wall fences that I really liked over there. And so I was like, you know what? I'm just going to not even bother with the larger barn idea. I even tried to like put it inside the other area to see if it would work. And I was like, no, let's just go with a chicken coop. I was also trying to decide if I wanted the chicken coop inside. And I do put it outside after I found like a really good spot for it, which you already had seen in the intro of this video. I have it off to the side of the stable and it fits perfectly over there. And just before, I was putting some floors down in the roof area so that I could add the little wood detailing around the build. And I think it really helps just make it look a lot better than it did before. It adds a little bit more detail, especially that the stable really is just two rectangle rooms and some very basic roofing. So just adding that really helps with it. And I do the same thing with like the wooden trim around the top for the other parts of the build. And I was trying to see if I wanted a third floor tower, and I didn't record all of it, but I also tried having it towards the right of the build. But I really just like the simplicity of having the three windows up there, and I never really just stick to a simple roof design. And so I really liked this and I wanted to keep it. So I was like, no, this build doesn't need a tower, even though majority of my builds usually have one. And I think the thing that I've really been enjoying about doing some pack limited builds recently is the simplicity of it. And so I think that is just what ended up happening with this, was that I was going for much more simpler designs and shapes for this, because it really is just some rectangles in some areas. I think that like the roof peaks are make it a little bit more interesting, as well as the like mixing of different windows here and there. I really like the windows that I picked out. I used the Jungle Adventure ones by the stables, and I use some base game ones at the base in some areas, and then the rest is from Cottage Living, but they all look really nice together. And I feel like when I'm using this Cottage Living window, I normally go for like all brown wood, but I decided to go with one that has like a blue accent to it just to add a little bit of color to the build, and I never really used it. And I was like, you know what, this looks pretty nice, so I'm going to try and make this one work. And as I'm looking at the build now, I think that the different windows really helps to add some visual interest to the build, because it is a simple shape for the build. And I use pretty much just like two wall types. So I have a stone and I have the half timber walls. but I feel like just like the different windows really helps to make it look a little bit more unique than it actually is. Because I have some that have like curved pieces at the roof peaks, and then others have square window panes, and others have diamonds, and it really just like works, I think. And also having the two chimneys also really helped to add something to it, so it didn't just look very empty. I must have sounded so weird there because I was about to just start coughing and it got like stuck. And so I like continued to talk. I was like, I need a second. But now I'm up to the landscape of the build. So I don't really make any other changes to anything else on the actual walls of the build. I maybe added a base game door to the back area, but now it is just pretty much landscaping, and I picked out mostly cottage living trees. I was going for very like lush full trees. I do try out like a couple of skinny ones, but I feel like they looked very out of place. And I wanted it to like, blend in with sort of like the trees that I'd seen on the other side of the build. And I sized down some of these very large floral trees to make bushes because I thought that would look really nice. And I really wanted this landscape to feel very natural. And like none of this was planted for like any aesthetic reason. It's really just like kind of like thrown there. Well, maybe those floral bushes were planted for an aesthetic reason, but mostly everything else kind of just grew, and that's just what ended up happening. And they have a little path that goes through it all. I love the cottage living landscaping stuff. I think that was like another really good choice on making this pack instead of get together, because I feel like get together, I don't think it really has much. And cottage living has so many of my favorite landscaping items. And so this was very fun for me to do. I really enjoyed landscaping this. And this is like one of my favorite landscapes I've done in a while. It is like really simple. Everything about this build, it feels simple to me, and I really like that. And so I was like, okay, I'm just going to put some overgrown grass framing the building. I'll have some mushrooms that I'll like scatter around with like the idea of a little dirt path running through it after. One thing that I didn't add was lighting out here. I do want it to be as like off the grid as possible, and so I want to use mostly candles and lanterns. That's something that I'll probably add in the next part. Well, I'll definitely add it in the next part unless I somehow like forget to add lighting out here. I just don't know which candles and stuff that I would use, because in my head I'm like, "Oh yeah, I could use the cute lantern that's like a wall lantern," but that's from Cats and Dogs, and that wasn't one of the packs that I had picked for this. So I'm gonna have to look through and see what else I like. Another pack that I was kind of on the fence about using was the Wedding Stories pack, and that was like the first one that I was looking through, and that would have been the one that replaced Jungle Adventure. But while I was looking through it, I was like, okay, there really isn't that much that I'm actually going to use in this build. I just really wanted to use the barrels and the cute candles that are on the walls that I really love. I was like, I'm not picking a pack just because I like two of the items in it. And I'm glad that I went with Jungle Adventure because I think that's what really helped me make this stable off to the side. I could not imagine this build without Jungle Adventure, so it's a good choice that I had made for that one. And that was mostly just because I was like, oh yeah, I'll love all of the furniture that comes in it. I'm sure there's a lot of really cute wooden pieces that I'll be able to use on the inside. And I was also really thinking about the cute stool that I really like from Jungle Adventure. And I noticed that there was like a lot more window options, which at first I didn't really think I was going to use the windows, but it was a good backup plan in case I wanted to, because like I knew I was going to use a lot of cottage living windows. They're my favorite windows in the game. So if I'm picking cottage living, I'm just going to use so much of it. And I use so much of it in the landscaping too. Like even the red bushes are cottage living. It's just like I love that expansion pack so much. I think it probably is one of, if not the best expansion pack. I really like every single area of the build buy in that. I was also trying to layer different dirts to see what I preferred. I think I just went with something really just standard. I just picked one single dirt and I went with that because I was going to layer them a little bit and have like darker patches towards the border or have the stone border around it. And I wasn't really liking any of what I was doing back there. So I was like, I'm just going to keep it simple and use a just a medium dirt path, I guess, and lay it out in the areas that I wanted it to be in. And I figured that I needed some more dirt in the stable area. And so I just did a lower opacity and I put it around a lot of the lot just to make it feel a little bit more natural. And now I'm using the garden to table kit, which is one of the newer kits that I believe was made by a creator, but I can't remember the name. It is by Brazen Lotus. I just looked it up so that I could actually make sure that I say their name. And that is the only pack in this build that I was gifted for free by EA. The other ones are packs that I bought with my own money. And I haven't really used this kit in a build yet, but when I looked through it, I really loved the clutter items in it. And I was like, this is going to look so cute in a little farm build. And so I made a little garden out here and I just try to put it around places. It isn't like too important in the build. So if you don't own it, you're really not missing out on too much of the stuff that I have. I mean, you'd miss out on the like overhang that I put there, but that was really like an afterthought to me. That was like not something I was going to actually have there, but I had seen it and I was like, you know what? I'm going to try and use a little bit more of it. And so I just put that there and I imagined some sort of like work table under there. So that's what I end up doing with that. But yeah, I was having fun looking through it and using some of the different gardening planters that came in that one because I haven't really used the kit yet. And so I was like, wow, I get to put it here. And they're like really well done items too. I think that it really just it feel well, I was gonna say it feels like CC, but they are a CC creator. So if you're on PC, definitely check out some of their stuff because these items are really cute. If you don't have it and you want to substitute some of the stuff out, I would probably just put some garden planters in place of a lot of those things. I'm sure there's a different pack tree that you could place around too. And that little overhang thing, I know that there's other ones from other packs that could probably fit in. You could even make your own with columns and the low fence pieces if you really wanted to. I just don't think that that part is that important anyway. Like, I feel like the build looks good without the overhang there, but there are some other options too if you wanted it. I'm about to place the items that I really loved from it, and it was the reason why I decided to pick this kit because I was trying to do at least one kit in this, and I was like, I feel like these items would be perfect as just like some decorative pieces here and there. It's like a basket of vegetables and produce, a bowl of eggs, and stuff like that. And it just like works really well in this build, I think. And I really love this little workspace under here. Just one table, a bunch of clutter on top of it, and some gardening supplies. Maybe I'll add some more over there when I actually do the interior because I am going to have to work on the stable. I was going to have the stable be part of this video, but I didn't actually get around to doing any of it. So I was like, I'm just going to save that for next week. And this one is just going to be a bit shorter. I don't know how long the interior is going to take me to do because this feels like a very small build, but I might want to have a lot more detail in it, especially if I'm like, um, just like making my build videos take 2 weeks to have like a full build up. I feel like I should put in a little bit more detail since I'm gonna have the time. I have a whole week to work on it. But I'm assuming I'll have just a bunch of farm stuff off at the stables. I need to find a place for a bathroom. I couldn't fit an outhouse in, which I figured I probably should have had an outhouse. So I might just have to have the bathroom inside the actual main building. But the downstairs is going to be like a bar area with a lot of tables and a kitchen. And the upstairs, I wanted to have sort of like a little living area for whoever owns the tavern. And now it's just the screenshots that are left. Some of this might be slightly different next week if I add anything to it. But this is what I have so far. It'll be on the gallery once I have the interior video up, which I'm planning to have up next Wednesday. And I do apologize if you do prefer having like much longer video with both the interior and exterior in one video. It's just not sustainable for me right now. And so this is kind of what is working for me. But thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And I will see you next week. Bye.